Hi everyone, Thomas Desmond here, developer advocate at Sitecore. In this video, I'm going to be covering getting started with Experience Edge for Content Hub. We will cover prerequisites and settings that you need to check for before getting started, the preview versus delivery API, using the integrated GraphQL IDE, and finally, we'll run some queries and get some of our data back. Expect additional parts to this video where we bring Experience Edge to the front end, using Next.js and Experience Edge to bring our data to the front end. Let's get started. So I have three expectations when it comes to getting the most out of this video. First, you're going to need a Content Hub instance. Second, you're going to need a license that lets you access Experience Edge and publish your data. And third, you're going to need to be a super user or have access to a super user so you can create API keys and change some of your settings. If you meet these expectations, you can follow along with this entire video. So let's hop on over to Content Hub and get started. So here I am in my Content Hub instance. And the first thing that I need to check is to make sure that I have content publishing enabled. We can check that by going to Manage in the top right. From here, I'll click on Settings. Inside of Settings, I'm going to look for Publish Settings and make sure that I have those enabled. Go to Publish Settings. You can see that I have Publishing enabled as well as Auto Publishing enabled. You're going to want both of these checked and both of these enabled. If you do need to check them, make sure to click on the right-hand side and Save and Publish All. This will make the preview API available to you and publish all your data to make it available on the delivery API as well. So that's the prerequisite that we have for us inside of Content Hub. I now want to take a look at the data that I have in here so that we can see what's available to us and see what's available to be pulled in through the Experience Edge GraphQL endpoints. So I'll head over to Content and look at my work. So I don't have too much content in here. I just have 5 items that you see here on the right-hand side. These are 5 blog posts that I've created. They're very minimal in content, but they'll do a great job of being able to explain Experience Edge. I also want to take a look at my content collections because those come into play as well when we're pulling in our data. Go to Content, Content Collections. And inside of here, you'll see that I have one collection called Next.js Blogs. And this content collection contains 2 pieces of content, both of my Next.js blogs. So the content that I have in my instance right now is 5 blog posts, and 2 of those are inside of a content collection. Now is going to be a good time to look at the endpoints that we have available to us. There is a preview and a delivery API. Let's cover those now. Looking first at the preview API is a GraphQL endpoint that exposes a preview of our content. This is the API endpoint that we're going to want to use during testing, development, and staging. It's not meant to be used in a production environment, but it's a good place to use for testing. The endpoint itself can be used by accessing the Content Hub URL of your instance, followed by API, GraphQL, Preview, V1, like you see here. There's also an integrated IDE that we'll see as well. This is the Content Hub URL for your instance, followed by /API, /GraphQL, /preview, /IDE. And we'll take a look at that here in the end of the video as well. It's also important to notice the header information here. To be able to authenticate with this API, you'll need an API key, and we'll look at that in just a second. But that API key goes into the header. So the key value XGQL token needs to have the key value of your API key. Next, we'll look at the delivery API. The delivery API is what we're going to want to use for production. It exposes the published content and has an identical structure to your preview API. The big difference with the delivery API is going to be the endpoint. We are no longer accessing our Content Hub instance itself. Our Content Hub instance is going to publish the data out to edge.sitecorecloud.io. Edge.sitecorecloud.io is the globally distributed network that gives you the availability and performance that you want for your production environment. There's an integrated GraphQL IDE as well at edge.sitecorecloud.io/API/GraphQL/IDE. So this delivery API is what we're going to want to be using in production because it is the globally distributed network of our content. The preview API is what we want to use for testing, development, and staging. And now's a good time where we can go and create our API keys so we can get started with actually accessing our data and checking out that integrated GraphQL IDE. So back in Content Hub is where we're going to generate our API keys. An important thing to note about API keys is they have a scope, and that scope is going to determine what data that API is able to access. So first off, since we're in our content collection, we'll create an API key that is specific to this content collection. If we go to the top right and click on the More Actions here, and then API keys, we'll bring up this dialog. You'll see that I have one API key here already, but I'll generate a new one. And the name here is very important because there's no way to determine in the future whether or not this is a collection only API key or what the scope of this API key is. So it's pretty important to name things well so that you can know what they are when you need to use them in the future. You can also choose whether this is going to be a preview or delivery API key. So for this case, I'll generate a preview API key called Next.js blogs collection preview. We'll create that API key. And this is also extremely important. The API key that gets generated here, this is the only time you're going to be able to see it, the only time that you're going to be able to access it. So make sure that you copy this API key and save it somewhere where you'll remember it and where it's safe. If you need to create more in the future, that's fine. You can delete old API keys, but instead of creating a bunch more API keys, make sure to keep these in a safe space. So we've just created a collection scoped API key. This API key that we just created is only going to be able to access my Next.js blogs collection. So that's important to understand that this is a scoped key. Now let's create a key that has access to all of our data. To do that, we want to go back to our manage here in the top right. There's the API key choice here. And inside of here, we can create another API key if we want something to be everything scoped. So if we went to create API key, again, the naming is important. You can choose whether it's a delivery or preview API. So again, make sure that in the name, it's apparent that this API key is scoped to everything. I already have a couple API keys, so I don't need to create a new one. But if you are creating a everything scoped API key, this is where you would do that. So we've got our API keys. And I want to show you just one more thing before we jump into accessing our data, and that's the delivery platform. So we'll go back to the Manage screen. Inside of Manage, there's the delivery platform. And we use the delivery platform to manage what data we want published. So if we want certain pieces of content or certain properties to be published or not published, we'd be coming to the delivery platform to do that. If you look at the asset tab here, we can see all the different members that are being published for the assets. So we can either X out items here if we don't want them published, or we can select members here, and we can see that most everything is being published right now for assets. We can do that for any of our definitions here. And if we click on the cloud icon, you'll see that this brings up the delivery platform settings. You can completely disable the delivery of this item. And you can also, what's really important is the section down below called publishing conditions. You can choose what conditions need to be met in able to publish that item. Maybe you don't want drafts being published. Maybe you don't want final items being published. You can choose all sorts of different things to be able to determine what conditions need to be met in order for an item to be published. So that's a quick overview of the delivery platform, but I do want to mention that because it's really important to the Experience Edge, because this is where you're going to go to determine what gets published and what conditions need to be met in order for it to be published. But now's the fun part where we get jump into the GraphQL IDE and start accessing some of our data. So let's hop on over to the preview version of the GraphQL IDE. I'm here now in the preview version of our GraphQL IDE. So we're going to be hitting the preview API endpoint. Again, the endpoint for your preview API key is your Content Hub URL followed by API/GraphQL/preview/IDE. That's going to bring you to this page. And the one thing that's really important before we get started here is the HTTP headers. You'll see in the bottom left, I have XGQL token being set to my API key. And I have the API key blurred out because I don't want you to see it, but this is where you're going to have to add that API key that you created. And the API key that I have here is a everything scoped API key, so I'm able to access anything inside of my Content Hub instance. So let's start working with GraphQL. So on the left-hand side here is where my GraphQL query goes. on the right-hand side is where my data will come out. So I have a pretty simple query right now. I'll click play and we'll see what data comes back. Cool. So this query brings back my content collections, showing the name of the content collection as well as the ID of the content collection itself. But how would we know that? How would we know that that's what this is going to return? Well, we can take a look at the docs section that you see on the right-hand side. If we open up docs, we can search our docs for the all-im content collection. And you'll see that this item shows up. The after, first, order by, and where are different clauses that we can add in there if we want. But what we're really interested in is this bottom piece where after the colon of content collection list. That means that if you query for the all-im content collection, you're going to be returned a content collection list back. If we click on this, we can see a content collection list includes page info, results, and total. Diving deeper into results, because that's what we're using inside of our query, we can see that results contains the content collection description, the name, the ID, created on, created by, and lots of different information. So this is how we can look at what data is going to be returned and how we can use the documentation that's built into the IDE. So the data that we have inside of Content Hub is all blog data. So let's use the GraphQL IDE and its autocomplete feature to find all of the blog data that we want. To open up autocomplete, you're going to use Control Space. If you're used to VS Code, this might be similar as well. So inside of here, I can do Control Space and it opens up the autocomplete. If I start typing blog, you'll see that there's two options available to me. Selecting a single blog using a UID, I don't have any UIDs right now, so I'm not interested in that. But then there's this one that selects multiple and returns that content blog list. So that's very similar to what we have above. So let's query for that. I can do Control Space again to open up my autocomplete. I have page info, results, and total. Let's go with results, open this up, and inside of here, you can see that we have all pieces for our different blogs. So let's just keep things simple, and I'm going to open up my blog title and bring in my blog body content as well. We can query for that. And now we have not only the content collection list, but also that blog content as well. We have the blog title and blog body for every one of the blogs that I've created. That's really the cool power with GraphQL, is that you can query for all the data you want in one single query, hitting one single endpoint. If I don't want the content collection data anymore, I can get rid of that. We can query this, and now we have just our blog content coming back. Let's see if we can pull in the ID information. So we have the ID now being pulled in. Cool. And now if I wanted to use that other blog content, I could say, oh, let's pull in the blog content where ID is equal to, and I'm going to grab this ID here, paste it in. And now if I open this up, I should be able to get the content just for that individual blog. So you're seeing now we get the blog up here, as well as from our content blog query, as well as in the bottom query down here, where it's the all content blog. So maybe we just wanted that one blog. So we can query for that. And now we're getting just that one blog based off of the UID. Another cool thing that we can do, so going back to where we get all of our blogs, something that we can do inside of here is create a where clause. So we can say where, and we can open this up. And you can have a bunch of different options here of what we can have inside of our where clause. We're interested in the blog related content. So let's see where the blog title contains Next.js. I could run that query. And I have two blogs inside of my Content Hub instance that have Next.js in the title, and it brings in just that GraphQL content for us. So it's really cool how we can use GraphQL to pull in just the data that we want. We're now making one query to one endpoint, and that query can pull in all sorts of great content for us. So this is as far as I wanted to get in our intro, getting started with Experience Edge for Content Hub. We looked at different prerequisites required inside of Content Hub. We covered the Preview API versus Delivery API, generating our API keys, and finally, we got to use the GraphQL IDE and actually pull in some data. Expect future videos where we start actually pulling this data into a front end using Next.js and displaying that data on the front end. If you like this video, give it a like. If you want to see the next upcoming videos, make sure to subscribe. Thanks.